All right, so this is Eric Heller.
Hi, everyone.
For those of you that have stuck around, I think you're going to really enjoy this. Eric and I have literally traveled the world together.
Literally traveled the world.
Eric, I'll let you give everybody your quick story of time at Amazon, your business, stuff like that. Quick. Eric can get wordy.
Oh my gosh.
And you'll see we have an interesting dynamic when we talk
Really
together.
interesting dynamic. You guys will all either really be looking to see if there's really an Uber strike or not, or you're going to be sitting here listening to us for a long time. So I started at Amazon in 1999. There was only one building and there's less than 1,000 employees.
That means you're rich, right?
If I had I have a great story that I wish
no,
you'd
keep
asked
going.
me
Go ahead.
I won't answer. So 3 months earlier would have made a huge difference. So yeah, the day I showed up, there was no one to interview me because Jeff had taken the entire company to the premiere of the new Star Trek movie. So like that's how small it was.
So what'd you do there?
Oh shoot, I was a few things first and early on, but the one that is most prescient for this is that I was the first merchant product manager, which is what some later on was called a CMM, and is really, if you think about it, an account manager for 3P. I ran so the anchor partners at the time were J&R Electronics, Office Depot, and Circuit City, and they were the fastest growing sellers on Amazon for the first 10 years of the 3P platform. I ran those. I did some other ones. I started sports and outdoors, and then as 3P lead. And then when I left, I did some other things before I started a company called Marketplace Ignition. And then we grew that to be the largest strategy consultancy. And then 2 years ago, this month, sold to a company called WPP, which some of you may have heard of, but is the largest agency group in the world. And about 1 in every 3 media dollars worldwide goes through a WPP agency.
Yeah, so Eric has a unique perspective in the fact that he's worked with 3P sellers. He's worked with major first-party brands. Again, we've traveled the world together. We've tried some ventures in China that have failed. And I thought it'd be great to kind of he happens to live locally. Thought it'd be great to ask a couple of questions about things that we're seeing in 2019 that maybe weren't as hot in 2018. And then we'll open this up and do some Q&A for everybody. So I know, Eric, you and I have talked about this in great depth, and it was not presented here at the conference. I'd love for you to chat a little bit about what you're seeing with the opportunity with B2B, Amazon the B2B marketplace, and how people in this room should be looking at B2B and thinking about it in terms of their strategic plan.
This is one of my favorite topics that I feel like no one is talking about enough. And even if you talk to Amazon, I feel like, even if you talk to the people on the B2B team, I feel like they'll say like, well, don't get too excited. There's not that much here. But in reality, this thing has gone from 3 billion to 10 billion in a year. It is unbelievably huge.
Anybody selling on the B2B platform right now? Great.
That was great, actually. Yeah. There was like half the people in this room. You
so
guys are,
I looked at,
you guys
I looked
are the
at
bleeding edge.
When we had this conversation, I looked at my statistics. Have you guys looked at your statistics to see what your rate, your average order value, and order sizes? Are you guys seeing it to be significantly larger or larger than the 3P side? Larger? One? Equal to the 3P side? Less? None of you have looked at the statistics. Less. Okay.
Okay. So
choke up on the mic. You want me to stop covering the antenna? Sorry. He says don't cover the bottom.
Sorry, come on. It's
he
the
says
end of the
don't
thing.
Cover the bottom. That's the antenna.
Oh. I won't cradle it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to say a few things to really be clear. Number one, the numbers are huge. But number two, I've heard crazy stats before, like 1 in every 4, 1 in every 3 Amazon packages go to a business address. Now, you could hear this and be like, well, come on, of course. Well, I pick up my packages at work too. I don't want them stolen off my porch. But it is such a short distance for all of you to think about for just a minute. How long were we all told, any of you had corporate jobs that, you know, at one point were you told, oh, you got to use a BlackBerry. You can't have that iPhone on the corporate network. That's just like 10 years ago.
And that happened to him.
We all wore them down. And now we all, like, does anyone know someone that has to have a BlackBerry? Raise your hand if you have to have a BlackBerry.
My uncle.
Right. Well, but the point is a really good one, which is people who are receiving Amazon packages at work will start ordering things for work. And if you think about what I mean by this, and I want to be clear, Amazon Business, you should think about for a second, not just, oh, well, it's a little underwhelming. I tried to buy some traffic there. It wasn't that great. Think about this differently. Think about those of you that have like your office manager who replenishes snacks for the kitchen at the office. Is she or he, are they buying those snacks on Amazon Prime now? Because by the way, our main office is in Seattle, but the one here has 5 people and it just doesn't pay to have a local manager. So once a week we have a list we run and then the Seattle person clears it all through on Prime Now and just delivers it. That is a business order on Amazon's consumer website. And by the way, she buys larger packaging because it's our office. And I just want you to think like, do I have office ready packaging? Do I have larger formats? Do I have, am I only thinking about business buyers as Amazon business because it's actually the consumer site too? And it's all going to be growing. I mean, there is going to be so much in this space with pervasiveness of Alexa and it's for institutions and commercial, and there's just going to be just so many opportunities like this.
So I think that to that point, I think that we're getting to or at the point that the prime shipping to the office is going to become the norm the way it is at home. So the office is doing the shipping. I do see with my product a higher average order value, a higher average dollar value with that. I'd be curious. There's several consumable products in the room. If any of you have a comment on that, I'd love for you to raise your hand and share if you'd be so bold. If you don't, then don't. That's fine. I'll just eye you.
How about does anyone do coffee or coffee related products in the room?
No, you guys do not.
So my only comment about
I don't
this
think
is,
he actually knew that. I mean, he probably knew you were here, but
it's just a great example. Like there's a WeWork right up the street here. They do all the coffee for their WeWork on Amazon consumer site. How much coffee do they go through? Which one do they pick? Is it yours? There's syrups.
I think in 2019, right? What wasn't happening in 2018 that's happening in 2019 is that I think you're going to start to see advertising targeting B2B buyers.
Yes.
I think that Amazon sees that and is going to play that out, which means you need to have your packaging ready. You need to have your pricing ready. Remember, I think it was Robin who said it. Remember that people will use Amazon B2B to discount your product and then resell it against you. So understand your pricing and such. Tyler, can we grab do I have a Tyler? Can we grab a mic for people in the audience who want to? Yeah. Oh. So he's saying the top 100 items in groceries are all restocks. Yeah.
And there's all kinds of ways of thinking about this, right? There are, think about things where you can make things easier, or maybe you can charge a premium because you can get them on reorder. For example, imagine the way you buy things for your own company. And I know we're probably going longer than on this specific thing, but I just want to say, as a business owner, time is money for you. Like reordering, here's an example. Reordering a no-name printer ribbon, I don't know, for your printer, like maybe, or an ink cartridge for your printer, like you might prefer and might be willing to spend more if you know it's going to be compatible, you know it's going to work, and you always just want to hit reorder when it gets low. Like there's just examples here where you might be able to sell things on reorder and have a higher price, and there's no competition, because to be honest, figuring out how to get those business buyers, those top 100 items on reorder, that's huge. I mean, maybe, Jeff just gave this talk before on post-order contact. Maybe we should be asking people afterwards, was this a business purchase? Do you know that you can reorder on Amazon? We have
No, you can't do that. That makes it promotional. So you got to teach this guy too sometimes.
You can't connect them to their business. Thank you for joining our business buyers group.
Have your mess. See how we get. It's like.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. I'm positive. I'll say this: it's speeding on the highway. But Amazon messages are supposed to be for the product and the purchase that you made, not promotional and marketing. So that's what
Jeff,
I stick by.
Can you include a warranty or follow-up card on the package for your business size package that says join our business buyers group?
No.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Question.
Oh, actually, it was more of a comment when you were asking about some successes on the business side. One of the things that we've seen is not necessarily offices purchasing, but institutional purchasing. So we have some business that it was not seasonal, typically in the summer months, but had a big takeoff for back to school. And we started seeing multiple unit purchasing and realizing it was all coming through Amazon Business for schools. So again, it just kind of you can also tap into some seasonality that has institutional purchasing
Yeah,
attached to it.
like what Vermont Teddy Bear was talking about. Try to get another
Yeah.
spike. Right. Yeah.
Truly, but
I
institutional buyers doing it.
Yeah, and I love that point, and I loved adding in that. Think about here. So in Georgia, school starts the first or second week of August, but in New York, it starts the first weekend of September, and I don't know what it is in Chicago, but it's such an interesting point of thinking. People so often think, like I've walked in all the time, and someone says, well, we might as well get started on swimsuits now. It's October. That'll give us a real break. And you're like, well, what's your cruise wear plan? And they'll say, oh, we don't think about swimsuits that way. And you're like, your third-party digital natives you're competing against
and the retail arbitrage people go, thank you.
Right.
Right. Because they're buying the winter hat and gloves in Georgia in February when they go on sale, and they're selling them to us in Chicago who need them in May.
Right. But I think that is so great, and thinking about different calendars is so important. Liz, Liz gave that great talk yesterday, but you might have your Christmas plan, you might have your whatever plan, your Prime Day plan, but do you have a Boxing Day plan? Do you have each of these other ones? Each of these other holidays.
We're gonna go into cross promotional or cross border here in a second. Let's see if we have a couple questions.
Yeah, is there a separate place to list for Amazon Business?
Yeah, so on the Seller Central, there is a tab. It's now on the top called B2B, and you can go in there. And I think they have I think there's like 5 points that they want you to complete in your B2B profile. And Robin talked about it a little bit. So they want to know things like, are you woman-owned? Are you a veteran-owned or something like that? Because that's what kicks in the institutional. Because a lot of the institutionals need to buy a certain amount of their products from different demographic groups. And then you can set actually B2B pricing, and you see different charts and things within there. Yeah. No, not a whole separate program.
But it is a different set of ASINs. Like I was looking the other day, my espresso
so it can
machine.
be. It can be. You can launch a whole new set of ASINs just for it.
I mean, like crazily enough, I just happened to be after 10 years, my little home espresso machine thing died. And I went and looked, and I was like, well, I wonder what the top 10 are right now, figuring it's been a long time since I shopped for one. And like the 6th one is a 5-pack of espresso machines for like $6,000. And I mean, it's almost laughable. Like you look at the top 20, that one is so clearly being obviously institutionally bought for that. And it's just so fascinating. But it's a great example. Someone out there decided, why compete on a 1-pack? Let's see if a 5-pack will work. And it's this number 6 espresso machine.
Any other questions about B2B before we move to cross-border? Awesome. So cross-border is hot. Cross-border is how many people are somewhere besides, we'll just stick with Amazon. So they're in Amazon US, but they're also in another Amazon country. Great. And for the rest of you, we'll leave it open to everybody. Who has plans to expand into more Amazon countries this year? Great. So a little bit about what you are seeing with your clients, experiencing with your clients, and what your expectations are for 2019 with cross-border.
So I said to Jeff yesterday, because I was thinking about this room, and Jeff and I have traveled to China together, what do you think, 3-5 times? Yeah. And we were both the only guys in the room from the US at Amazon's global event to the Chinese sellers, so the digital natives that you compete against all the way up to Anchor. What is amazing about that, and that's different about this room, is that none of them only think about one market. None of them. There's not one, I mean, in a room of 10,000 sellers, I don't think a single one of them only think about selling in the United States. To them, they use, whether it's the EFN or the American FBA, or arguably they would use Dragon Boat, but I don't think they need it. But the point is the same, which is once they've cracked the code for Amazon, what they've really understood that I think, I would love to see it every seller discussion and conference is 95% of the work is done once you get the product listed in one country. The rest is translation, shipping, and there are great third-party helpers for that. But the point is that Amazon as an algorithm is identical in almost every country. Sure.
What type of uptick could I expect by moving to another country? Because I think that the challenge that we have as entrepreneurs is our time, right? So if I'm going to try to hit my goal for the year, what type of uptick am I getting through the effort of moving to another country?
I don't remember exactly the most recent data, but I believe that international exceeded domestic for Amazon. So I think, let's just say, I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like 55% versus 45%.
So if you can get in every market, you potentially could be equally in your U.S. market.
And then also, let's also not forget that doesn't, one of the things that I like to speak about a lot is about how it's amazing when I go speak in Europe, people come up to me and they're like, you're like a futurist. How do you know this is going to happen on Amazon? And it's just so funny. But the truth is that a lot of sellers in Europe are like 3 years behind what you hear at a conference here. When I go there, I'm going next Monday and Tuesday of next week. And I'll get up and present an advanced strategies, and there won't be anyone who's done most of what you guys have done. It's just a different level. There are people who are just getting started. They're a few years behind. That same savvy that you have here is just a few years in front. So I would argue that you might over-index. It's not just about the percent of Amazon, but I would argue that you could over-index with fewer competitors, fewer savvy competitors, and slower moving global brands that just haven't adapted yet to U.S. seller practices.
So a lot of you raised your hand. Questions that you guys have about cross-border or comments that you want to share about your cross-border experience? Because I had a conversation with a few of you last night, and I said, the power in this room is you guys. It's not always us. So part of what I want to do here in this final session is have you guys speak and share with each other your experiences.
Question on FBA fees in Canada. So we have the same products in the US, and then we work with a distributor. His fees up in Canada are 15% higher than ours in the US. Again, we can look at like the FBA chart on Amazon and .com and .ca, but I didn't know if anyone else was seeing that the FBA fees in Canada are much higher. And then also kind of seeing it also in Europe already too.
I think that we've seen some great what Eddie put up and some other folks about really knowing your item level details. One of the things, it's one of my favorite things that I say all the time is if you have 1,000 SKUs on Amazon, you don't have an Amazon business, you have 1,000 Amazon businesses. And every product has to live on its own and succeed on its own. Don't ever let anyone tell you like, oh, you got to look at total profitability. Sure, you should look at total profitability. Someone yesterday gave that great discussion where they said, I don't care about attribution as long as I can see the data is going in the right direction, which was also great. But at the end of the day, for what you're asking, I think you're probably right. The fees are obviously different, but each market, every SKU should win on its own. And you just need to have I always say the second most important person on your team is your data analyst.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Peter said, right? It's ASIN strategy, and your ASIN strategy your ASIN strategy needs to be based off of, you need to have a strategy for each country, right? Because the profitability is going to be different because of those. But if anyone has comments to add to that. Yeah. Anyone hear anything about FBA Canada? Mr. Eddie has a comment. Anyone? We need a mic. Hold on, we'll come back to you. Yeah, I know, but then it's not on the recording for when people want to remember this forever in their life.
Okay, so they have the NARF program out now, which in my opinion is still very, very, very much in beta mode.
Explain what it is.
Yeah, NARF program allows you to use your U.S. stock to fulfill orders in Canada or Mexico. It's not FBA export because with FBA export they have to order on the U.S. site. nor if they can order on Canada or Mexico and it uses your US stock. However, in my experience, when I tried it out and when I've worked with the team over there at Amazon, a lot of my items are not converting. They're getting errors and it's just not working very well, but that program is out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's probably very similar
Yeah.
to the program they have in Europe, where you ship into one facility in Europe and then they'll distribute it through the.
And
Yeah, it's still in beta.
And I do just want to say, just remember when you think about, like, I get that Canada's really close, so it's easy to say, like, well, if I could ship to Chicago, why can't I ship to Toronto? But I do just want to say, remember that Canada's, like, from an Amazon perspective, like the size of California. So, Germany is the highest penetrated market worldwide for Amazon. UK is really easy. Once you're into Europe, FBA and their European fulfillment network, you get all of Europe. And so
Japan is hot.
Japan is super hot. I gotta say, if I was in your position, I'd probably be all over India if I could figure out how to get my product there. There's just think about these, that in each of these cases, there's unique characteristics of lack of competitors, brand new market. You might think, God, I got 60 sellers on my back here in the US, but maybe there's no one selling your product yet in that market. And maybe it's a little different. Someone was telling me yesterday that they were worried that their average selling price is higher in that market if they really work out all the fees and the export and the everything. And that might be true, but there might be some other things in that market that make you be able to say, like, well, I have export quality. Like what you sell might be higher in demand there. So there's so many different factors.
Yeah, like there's a whole program in China where they ship products to the US
and then
they ship them back to China so that they can say that they're US brands.
It's unbelievable. And by the way, they're made in China, shipped there, come back, and that gets a higher premium. But it really is. It gives them an assurance of quality, and there's a lot of examples of that in terms of being able to point to different search terms, different search reactions. You just look at the same companies, by the way, like even your brand competitors. If you look at the same brand competitor, like, I don't know, let's say you compete against Nestle. They have my point, I made that up, but they have each of these big brand company have a different local market that's running their Amazon business, and they may be your biggest challenge here, but they may not even be playing or working with Amazon. And so to really think about, different brands have different places in each space, and we tell brands all the time that they need to unify their approach. I would say the same thing to third-party sellers.
Go ahead.
I just have a question about the dynamic that you guys would suggest for international markets for just like translators. Does it make more sense for an in-house marketing team to come up with that marketing and then have the translators come over? Do you think it should be individual marketing agencies in separate countries, et cetera?
It's a really good question.
So, of course, there's things like translate.com. There's a company in Europe called TwoSell that's really good at sort of taking one and putting you in every country with a native language speaker. They have like 40
I think that's the key, right? Like, how many times have you gotten a package and you can tell that it's Chinese English, right? Because somebody in China who took a class in English decided to rewrite it. And I know that was a big thing when we first started working with the groups in China, was that, we were like, well, we can offer this from the actual US perspective for the writing of what you're doing. And so I think you want somebody who understands the language, but then there also is the dialect, right? So it's not just knowing Spanish, but there's Spain Spanish and there's Mexican Spanish and there's probably South American Spanish, right? There's all different versions of it. So making sure that the language you're using actually makes sense when people read it, and that you're translating to the right words. One of the great stories that Eric and I tell of our trips to China was when we were in a cab and we were trying to go to the Sheraton, and I said to the cab driver, "Take me to the Sheraton," and he goes, "Sheraton," and I go, "Sheraton," and he goes, "Sheraton," and I go, "Sheraton." And he goes, "Okay," and he starts driving, and I look at my map and I go, "This dude is not going to the Sheraton." And my buddy's like, "No, he's going to the Sheraton." I'm like, "He's not going to the Sheraton." He's like, "He's just taking a roundabout way to get to the Sheraton." And he pulls over and he goes, "Sheraton." And I go, "Hilton." And he goes, "Sheraton." And I go, "Hilton." And he goes, "Sheraton." And I go, "Hilton." And then he goes, and then I pull up the phone and I hand it to him and he goes, "Oh, Sheraton."
True story.
Because that slight little language difference, because Hilton decided to call themselves Sheraton, and Sheraton is Sheraton.
I think
I
it
don't
means
know.
like lucky
Did I
place to
did I
sleep
say-
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, understanding the language becomes very critical to how you deliver your message.
But wait, I want to counter this with one thing. If that trips you up, don't let it. Right? I'd rather be in market with okay. Remember better is the enemy of good. If there's no one else there, maybe your coffee is hope for death coffee. Like that doesn't really work out. But like the point is, like, figure that out. But does that mean that you shouldn't sell there at all? I don't know if that means that. I might say, like, get it listed, get the ASIN up, start working on that, and then
you might want to find for you guys. You might want to find out whether like highly caffeinated is a thing, right? Like, right. Yeah, and they drink pour overs other places, and they drink capsules versus K cups versus in
Right.
Europe and things like that. So,
But my point is that so often we let ourselves say, like, all right, I'm not going to list that until it's perfect. I mean, as third-party sellers, you have so much more flexibility with content than a brand even does. Brands have to wait until the SVM or the AVS updates their content. You can update your
you
content
don't even
every
have
time.
an AVS.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
so
don't
my
know what it
point,
is.
right? But my point is that because you can update it directly. Either way, you have so much more data access, and so use it to your advantage. Get up product quickly, and then iterate over time with better content. But if you sat there for 3 months looking for the perfect translator and missed 3 months of sales, you'd be like, boy, I'm not sure I made the right decision.
Go ahead up there.
I think everyone here is probably pretty excited about expanding out to other marketplaces, but one thing that's held me up is logistics and value-added tax registrations, specifically in Europe. I'm just curious, what your thoughts or suggestions of what you've seen other sellers do or how to handle this.
So Amazon, has anyone participated in Amazon's new program where they kind of cover the VAT for you? You want to talk about that? I haven't done it. They cover the processing for the first. Yeah, go ahead.
So Amazon has a process right now where they hook you up with first choice shipping and Avask in Europe, and Avask and First Choice have a partnership called GE. I don't remember what it stands for, but they take care of all your registrations and all your filings, and they help you get the product there. And they just made it very simple and easy to get going.
Yeah, and it covers you for like the first year, right?
First year, correct.
And then after the first year, you kind of have to have all your stuff figured out.
Yes, then you have to have it all figured out. And Avask, if I remember correctly, was $800 a quarter. No, $600 a quarter. I think it was $2,400 a year for all the services through them, which is great.
Yeah, and I've got connections over to First Choice Shipping. If you are interested, you can ping me and I can connect you with them.
But I just want to add to this. I am always stunned by third-party sellers from China who don't think about this at all. Like, we often get all wrapped around the axle on this, and you've got to say, like, I know that you want to say, but I feel like it's like an afternoon Google searching, and there's certainly partners that you could start with and try. I don't want to get up here and point
Well, but
to
I mean,
one or the other.
I get your point, right?
Oh,
like
I
getting
totally-
through all the VAT and all that, right? Canada's kind of like path of least resistance, but if you can get in and get your volume going, and you get into Europe, you get all of Europe. It opens up that big treasure chest.
And wait, I'm sorry. Can I add
Yeah,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing on this?
Oh, usually, go ahead.
I want to say one more thing, which is FBA height and inbound restrictions are no joke. So I will tell you one thing, which is that not reading carefully or having someone who can calculate the difference between metric and imperial systems, turns out that they're not joking about the height restriction in the FBA. We had a client early on sent a pallet that was at, I don't exactly remember, but I want to say a half a centimeter, so a quarter of an inch too tall. And Amazon not only wouldn't accept it, but it just sat there on the receiving, and then it finally had to be, I think, destroyed because it wasn't worth bringing back. And it had gone, a full pallet of product all the way to Europe, and they wouldn't receive it because it was a half a centimeter too tall for the. So, like, it just, like, this sounds so minutia and it's so obvious, but you don't want to be the one that it happens to you next.
Yeah,
You
and that might be your whole thing when you're looking at like going to Canada and looking at FBA fees. I mean, I had an early product, and if I put it in the package this way, I got extra fees. But if I put it in diagonal and I shrunk the package by an inch, then all those fees disappeared. So
Right.
so understanding your numbers make critical sense.
Yeah, so back to Europe, we're in the UK where they distribute it from the UK out into the other countries, but we're looking to go the pan-Europe way that he was talking about before to get the VAT certificates in the different locations. So they put my understanding is they put the FBA actually in the country, so you're getting faster service and all. Was that worth it to you guys who have done that? Have switched over, jumped through the hoops, pay those extra fees and all that for the Europe? Is it worth it?
Jerry, was it worth it? He wanted to know if it was worth it to pay the extra fees to jump through all the hoops to go to Europe and go in the pan-European system.
Like right now we're in the UK, where they take it from the UK and they'll send it off. But we're getting ready to do what you just did. Oh, right, okay.
So far, his test is only 4 or 5 weeks in, and he's a multimillionaire.
All right, we're in. Thanks. Okay.
Ladies, did you have something you want to add to that? I saw head shaking. Say that again.
Wow, that was great. She said it's worth it.
Okay.
She said, baby, it's worth it.
Sure.
So we sell consumer electronics, Bluetooth speakers, and we've going into Japan is a big one for us. We think ours will do fantastic there. Well, I've trying to get our head around the certifications that are required in Japan for that, like a telco number and some other things. Anybody here familiar with that at all? I'm getting different answers all across the board.
Is anybody selling in Japan? Let's start with that. Okay, one person selling in Japan. Two? Yeah. Well, I know yours is not electronics. Are you doing electronics? Can you help with that answer? No. Okay. Is that a don't want to help or don't know? Anybody else? Anybody know the answer to that? Yeah. Okay. We can try to help you find that.
Yeah, I'm getting different answers from, like inspection companies, like our Chinese inspection companies, our manufacturers even, and a lawyer over there in Japan, and a distributor in Japan wants to bring us stuff over.
If you shoot me that as an email, I'll send it to somebody I know that works with Amazon Japan and see if they come back with an answer.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Thanks, Jeff.
I can't promise that they'll answer, but I'll ask them. Jeff at Seller Labs.
Can we talk also about these digital natives out of China and what else we experience and how it's impacting their business?
Yeah, actually, the question I was going to ask you that I think, and then I want to roll. We'll do about 10 minutes on here, and then I want to roll and just ask us anything. What I'd like to ask, not about digitally natives out of China, but just in general, when you speak to executives and big brands in the first party space, what do you tell them about us? Like, what are they worried about that we're doing? Do they see us as a threat to their business? Do they see us as an opportunity, as a potential acquisition? Like, how do they view? I've gone and spoken at those shows about how we kick their butts, right? But how do they view? How do they view us?
Butts.
Yeah.
I think so. A year ago, I was presenting at this board of directors. No, it was the senior leadership team for a large consumer electronics brand. And what they told me that I thought was really funny was they said, we really like partnering with you guys. It's been really great. They said, but your reporting sucks. And I said, our reporting? And they said, yeah, you keep including all these brands that we don't compete with. And I said, well, how so? And they said, well, we know who we compete with. It's the people that are against us on the shelf at Target and Bed Bath & Beyond. And I said, no, you compete against these brands. They said, well, we don't consider them competitors. And I said, you don't get to pick who your competitors are. The market decides who your competitor is, and the market decides what your go-to-market price is right now. And I think that in many ways typifies the transition. I don't hear this very often now over the last year. I think brands understand. I'm starting to see some really interesting innovation where, the things that we saw 2 years ago out of China, I'm seeing with large brands where they are taking brand sentiment and product sentiment and turning it over on a quarterly or monthly basis to product development. Hey, we make toothpaste. We're not doing charcoal toothpaste, and all these search terms say charcoal. We need a charcoal toothpaste, and they get that into product development based on data on Amazon, as an example.
And we've seen that. We have a friend who just took over a company actually out of Vermont, and like he said that his nimbleness as a third-party brand to be able to walk in and be like, let's try a new flavor, let's try a new packaging type. Those are the things that give him the advantage of bringing new products to market and beating these old established companies that have a tough time steering their ship.
And I think the thing that frustrates brands the most is the pollution of brand equity. So, it's not just price, right? It is people that are going out and creating the great example that I think is creating a second listing that isn't merged, because your strategy to win is to hope to accidentally get clicks of people who click over to the next listing instead of the primary one. And then as long as you're winning that, that's your version of that. And so then you'll get some percentage of the clicks. Like that, to me, like that might work, but it's not a long-term business strategy you would take to your bank and say, this is my go-to-market plan. And on the flip side, like brands see that those pages don't have the same brand quality, brand equity. Like, if you want to be the one that says, gosh, my value is that I'm going to be a certified distributor, and I'm going to go, and my niche is going to be to go create that B2B pack for all of this, for everything Kellogg's does. I'm going to create a 10-pack of every one of their 1-pack cereals, and that'll be a go-to-market. I'm going to call it, cerealsinbulk.com. I mean, I don't know if that's a long-term strategy that they would, that someone would figure out disintermediate. But my point is that's adding value on an existing product, and you could link on the same page, use their same good content. That would be a thing that I don't think would frustrate people, other than they might do it themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Vermont Teddy Bear, and I was talking to a guy at lunch, like that's something that I think Vermont Teddy Bear has really done well, like coming out with exclusive products for Amazon that are different than what they're selling on their website,
right?
That are attracting people to buy in one medium or the other. I think that as your brand grows and as your brand, how many people are in brick and mortar? So good handful, good dozen or so of you. As your brand grows into brick and mortar, how do you keep that relationship? And I'll say of all of you who just raised your hand, did you start on Amazon and grow into brick and mortar? Or did you start in brick and mortar and grow into Amazon? Amazon, brick and mortar. I know Vermont was brick and mortar. We'll call it technically catalog paper. Yeah. Okay, great. So about half and half, but interesting. Did you have a question up there?
Oh, yeah. On the international expansion, there's more opportunities to join Vendor Central in some of these regions. And I know that they're completely distinct from the U.S. vendors, or I understand they're completely distinct. Any advice, caution? I imagine it simplifies a lot for different markets.
I have definitive direct feedback on this. Whatever you think is true in one market may or may not be true at another, and that is always true. And
very definitive thing.
I mean this, but I actually mean it's really important. Amazon is all a series of assembled 2 pizza teams. The policies.
Do you guys know what a 2 pizza team is? That means that the team is no larger than what could eat 2 pizzas.
And the entire company and the
How
entire
many
org design.
How big are the pizzas? New York slices versus Chicago. It's usually like 5 to 8 people on a team.
But this is a really important thing. Like for yesterday, Peter Kearns opened this up talking about brand, one vendor and policies and thinking about hybrid as a future. And he and I were talking for half an hour afterwards about what he was saying, because what he was really trying to say is not one vendor is going away or I'm sorry, hybrid's going away. What he was trying to communicate to everyone is have a plan in case it does. But I want to even stress that further, and that's why I feel like I planted your question. It's even really more true by country. So first of all, there is so far not a one vendor policy rolled out nationwide that is really true for every category. And I would say a lot of that goes down to the 2 pizza team organization, a lot of things that you would talk about over a beer. But in reality, somewhere where you were like, man, in the US, they would never buy from me. I'm never a 1P. In Canada, you might be a great 1P candidate. And just every country, you should have a separate plan. You just spend the time on it. It either is or isn't valuable. You either can or can't get there. There are different products that might make sense. It might only make sense to economically send a 3-pack, but that's better than nothing. And I would just say, just look at the other products in your space. What makes sense for your competitors in that space? Are there competitors? Is there search term demand? But really, don't go in assuming that what you know here is true there.
Is anybody doing vendor in Europe? Yeah, you are. Anything you want to add to that? Just to make Tyler really run all the way across the room. You're using a distributor to get. Okay. So there's lots of different ways to cut this, right? Like he's using a distributor. The distributor has the vendor relationship. That might have to change at some point in his business plan, just like the people who originally started with vendor relationships in the U.S. Okay, we're going to move to a general. Go ahead, Eddie. You can ask a question. But we're going to move to a general AMA, and what?
And I have a parting upfront thought from you and me.
Okay, but so what I want is that you came here with a question. You came here with a thing you're trying to solve in your business. And this is kind of your chance. I don't think we'll get to everybody, but this is your chance to kind of bring it up and ask it if you didn't feel like you came here and that question got answered, and hopefully we can address a few of these.
Eddie had a question first, though.
So I just want to point out, we talked about vendor on the UK side. Some of the problem I'm seeing with that for some of my brands in the US is that if they have a distributor who's selling to retail in the UK, the Amazon Global UK 1P vendor account, I guess, like Amazon UK, is taking over the buy box in the US, and they're taking over the buy box for double the price. And they're shipping product from the UK and basically making it impossible to sell product in the US, and also messing up contributions that you do as a brand owner here. It's a mess.
What was the question, though?
I'm just making a statement. Like
Oh.
when you if you are a brand
Oh, yeah.
here and you are selling to vendor in the UK or have distributors doing that, I am seeing that it's impacting the US side.
Yeah, I would also admit, I would also tell you the number one thing I hear from very large brands, global brands, is that they're typically structured through a legacy way where they might have a sales lead in each country that has their own quotas and pricing structures, and hey, that guy's got to meet quota. He blows through a big deal in Spain, and the number one thing I hear all the time is they don't realize that Amazon centrally buys. So Amazon will opportunistically buy deeply in Spain to get that guy his number. And by the way, guess where the product shows up? Everywhere. And so it becomes like you have to think about having your strategy that if you sell to Amazon 1P, that stuff ends up, they might buy in one country but ship everywhere. And so it's similar to what you were saying, but you just added in across the pond. I want to add one parting thought from us before
and if
we
you have
ask questions.
Eric came to the rescue with a fourth mic again. Champion Eric, thank you. So if you have a question, just kind of nod to either Tyler over here or Caroline up there, so they can line you up.
Okay, so as a parting thought of our sort of bestowing knowledge on the crowd from our work together. So 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, Jeff and I put on a conference in Shenzhen, China, and it was crazy. We partnered with
World First.
Yeah. And we did, no kidding, we only advertised, they kept saying, don't advertise too early. It's a mistake. We advertised it 8 days before it went. We had 1,200 people in the room, 1,400 people total on the list. So 200 people couldn't get in.
Tell them what I did from stage.
I don't remember. What did you do?
Remember what I did? I sang.
What were you singing?
I sang Michael Jackson Thriller from stage.
All right.
Karaoke style.
So this thing was live translated. There were 1,200 people from all around China that were digital natives.
They go non-stop. Like they start their conferences at like 8 a.m. They go till 5 p.m. They stop for like 30 minutes for lunch. They don't have bathroom breaks or anything.
They swarm you at the end of each session.
I was like the sixth presenter in a row, and I needed to do something to get their attention.
And well, the guy before you was a social media superstar.
There is video of it. There is video. So.
Yeah. The guy before you was a social media superstar, and that guy was crazy, jumping around on stage in a jumpsuit. There is a point.
Okay, cool. I'll let you get back.
So at the lunch between Jeff and I was Dong Ping, who is the CEO of the largest seller on Amazon. Does anyone know who the largest third-party seller brand on Amazon is? And so Jeff and I are having lunch, and Dong Ping is sitting right next to us. And I want to give you some parting words from Dong Ping, which was really exciting. He said to
into the microphone.
Gets recorded?
Yes.
So you can play it in 2 years when you can find the recording. So Dongping says, can you just hold it for me? So we asked him, I said, you guys do an amazing job. You guys work so hard. And he looks at me and he says, oh my gosh, thank you. And I said, why? And he goes, because everybody starts with, you're so lucky. He said, we're not lucky. He said, he says, people come to us all the time and say we're lucky. He goes, it's super annoying. He said, basically, we work so hard. He said, every day, what I tell my team is, he said, be 1% better. He said, that's all you have to do. And what he said is not 1% better than yesterday, 1% better than everyone else. And he said, it's like this. He said, if you were walking into a casino and you could improve the odds by just 1%, you'd be the richest person in the world. You just play roulette all day and play black or red, and you'd know which one it was, and eventually you'd be the richest person in the world. And so I just want to share that with you, that it's work a little harder and look at the data a little better than the next person. The data is out there. Most people have access to data that will help their business succeed more. And Amazon is a platform that's continuously growing. They're barely started. You saw these numbers the other day. It's like, wow, it's 55% of e-commerce, but e-commerce is barely 10% of retail in the United States. And you look at China, in China it's 34% of retail is e-commerce, and Alibaba is like 80%, 84% of e-commerce there. So Amazon has a long amount of growth. All of you all who are doing well in e-commerce, there's a lot more growth in front of you. Keep analyzing, be 1% better.
Okay, go ahead.
So I know we had talked about this a little bit before, and I know it's not like one singular thing, but what do you guys find is like a sort of the secret sauce to an Amazon listing? I know it's more than one thing.
You
but-
push the easy button.
Right. No, it's the
and
third
just-
bullet. It's the
so-
second character in the third bullet.
Listen, I think you're asking a question a lot of people ask. And I think
Right.
that what it comes down to is understanding and following a process, setting a goal. And, it's something we've talked about in our business a lot is it time to pivot or is it time to persevere, right? Is it time to move forward or is it time to change? And those are the things but make them data-driven decisions. So like Eric said, just get something going. Like don't let things be a barrier when you're trying to go international, when you're trying to get a listing up. And yes, there is such thing as a perfect listing. Not a lot of people have it, but get a listing up and then iterate off of it once you have data, and the data can tell you whether the changes you made were better or worse. You've got 100 things that you have to do for your single product that you're currently selling on Amazon. And that only amplifies as you add another product and another product and another product. And so one of the things I share in a presentation is you go back to that business report. We talked about red light, green light, yellow light, and you start to figure out where your biggest opportunities for change are. Where's your most amount of traffic and your lowest conversion? Start there, right? I can improve conversion on my highest traffic. It's a lot of money that's sitting there. So you start to prioritize all the things that you have to do, and you work on them kind of one by one.
And I want to supplement a few things. One, I'm going to honor someone that was on a panel that passed away this last year that Jeff and I both spoke with, and his answer, I think this was him, said, don't love your inventory too much. People find that they get really personal about like, that SKU is going to work. I swear I'm going to keep pushing it. If it's ready to throw off the back of the truck, throw it off the back of the truck and get to the next one. Know what works. That was him, wasn't it? Didn't he?
I don't know if it was said, but it's a good point.
It is a good
I don't know if he
point.
said it, but yeah.
The second thing that I want to go
People
is
do love their inventory more than they should.
And then the second thing I want to say is that I talk at Marketplace Ignition, the company I started, we talk all about this thing that we call operational marketing, which is a theory that's different. Amazon works in a different kind of marketing. The product, it really starts with operations and assortment long before marketing. So it's really great. What Jeff was just saying is think conversion before thinking of driving more money on media. That's a great point. But before conversion, make sure the product is in stock. Make sure, in other words, do you have the right assortment that people are searching for? Can they find it? And is it actually in stock? Because don't forget that.
Trying to think who I was talking to about that yesterday. And I said, yeah, it's great when you get your advertising dialed in, but guess what happens? Your sales pick up.
And then, right, are you thinking, right.
Right.
And,
so think about the chain reaction of what's going to happen. And if you're going to go spend the time to fix your advertising? Do you have more inventory when your sales velocity increases?
This is such a good point. I can't tell you the number of times people are like, "This is amazing. We're up 30%." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you have 7 days of cover and it takes you 10 to replan. Why are you discounting?" Like these are kind of examples that a lot of us forget. We're so excited sales goes up, but now you have a different problem. And so just really think about this. Boy, this is a long answer to a short question.
Question? Anybody? I don't know. Anybody else have questions? Great.
Yeah, so I just have a question. It's kind of for the group at large, I guess. But does anybody have experience? I mean, first off, I know we've talked about like Facebook, and there's a presentation yesterday about YouTube advertising. But has anybody tried Reddit, using Reddit advertising to drive traffic to Amazon?
Yeah, anybody tried Reddit?
It's kind of a random
So
one.
I have tried to
Great
get a
idea.
speaker here for Reddit twice, and I just haven't been able to get him. I'm trying to think of what his name is.
Okay, cool.
It's Brian, but I don't remember what his last name is.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of untapped.
yeah, up there.
Knowing how much time my son spends on Reddit, definitely a great idea.
Yasha, not Yasha.
So I was wondering, was Prime Day coming up pretty soon? Do you have any tips on how to prep for it correctly?
It's a great question. Tips for prepping on Prime Day. What are you working with your clients right now on with Prime Day? What are you talking to them about?
For us, for Prime Day, because Prime Day is what we call a classic prisoner's dilemma. Does anyone remember prisoner's dilemma from economics? Yes, hand raised. Prisoner's dilemma. So, prisoner's dilemma. The very short thing is that a couple people are arrested for the same crime, and if neither of them talk, they both walk free. But you don't know; they're both being interrogated in separate rooms. And if one of them talks first, then they get a reduced sentence, and the other guy gets a really long sentence. You can look this up; you'll see why. But basically, the short story is Prime Day is this thing that we all sit around and say, like, maybe we should sit it out. But it's so good, and if you get it right, like the Vermont teddy bear thing yesterday, or then it could really work. And so what I would tell you that we talk about all the time is to not think about the primary part of Prime Day, but we talk about thinking about the halo effect. What are you actually trying to do? And if you can only get X number of products listed, how do you create a larger halo effect to drag and create and extend that peak? If you remember the peak yesterday for Vermont teddy bear, is there something I can do to create a tail of that, of more exposures, more impressions? Can I look at the products, for example, if I'm going to pick a product that's for sale on Prime Day, is there a frequently bought together on that page that I can look to drive as well?
Did Peter pick up a product for Prime Day?
Peter picked a product for Prime Day.
We're doing a 3-part webinar series. So part 1 is already run. Tyler, I think you're doing part 2?
Nope, I did part 1.
You did part 1,
Brett
okay.
and Edward are doing
Brett
part
and Edward
2
are doing
on
part 2.
5/22.
On 5/22, and I'm doing part 3 with Lena sometime in June. June 19th. Thank you, Caroline. I would say that the other thing with Prime Day is think about it again. Amazon, I think one of the big misconceptions is Amazon is not built for sprints. They're built for marathons. That's kind of leading to the halo. So Amazon has this thing called Prime Day. They have this thing called Cyber 5, which is Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. But the reaction of your product doesn't take place on Prime Day. It actually takes a little while. So anything that you're doing for Prime Day in terms of prepping, you really need to be doing a couple weeks before. And so we recommend that you are, if you're rebuilding ad campaigns for Prime Day, you're launching them 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. If you want to increase your budget for Prime Day, you can't just wake up that morning and increase your budget and expect to get an increase in the number of impressions. You have to build up the logic of the algorithm to understand that. I think that you have brands. I'm sure you guys, Death Wish and Vermont Teddy Bear, probably have Prime Day promotions. A lot of us may or may not participate. If you have an audience, it's a great day to send your external traffic into Amazon and run a Prime Day promotion. Run a promotion with your external audience, 3 days before that says Prime Day special, and on the day, Prime Day special. Drive as much traffic to your product to help it get its boost in its sales velocity so you get that halo effect. Open that up. Anybody want to talk about what they're doing for Prime Day or what somebody else should be thinking about with Prime Day? Did you see me just staring at you?
So usually we do our biggest deal on Prime Day, and a lot of it is just to kind of boost those rankings and see what kind of effect, the difference between making, say, $18,000 a day on one product between making, $80,000 a day on one product, seeing where that puts us in terms of ranking and, say, overall grocery, and just kind of paying attention to how that affects our sales velocity afterward. So you can go into that SKU Central report, obviously in Amazon, where it tells you your sales against your ranking. I think that's really valuable, especially if you're discounting your products so heavily.
Are you guys doing external promote? Are you using your external email list to promote people into Amazon on that day?
Typically, we haven't, but
Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
You're just running Prime Day promotions on Amazon.
Right.
Okay.
I-
Anybody? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. Anybody else doing Prime Day promotions?
I just want everyone to think about what is the best money you can spend. People get so thoughtful around how much money can I possibly afford to spend on media that day? How much, whatever. And I think this ties a little back to what Jeff said a minute ago. The most efficient dollar you can spend on media is the dollar you spend on conversion. And so I just want to think, if you have some product you're promoting, you're putting up even if you're doing maybe DSP or programmatic, or you're driving traffic to that page, once they're on that page, if you haven't done everything you can to convert on that page, like let's say it doesn't have a comparison grid. Like you have 5 products like this. If someone doesn't like that one, have you really assorted that page so that if someone doesn't like it in cherry, they can buy it in black licorice? I don't really care. The point is the same.
So this is going back to, if you haven't updated your enhanced brand content since they've added the new templates, these are the things you should be doing. That's the comparison grid that he's talking about.
But whether it's grids, whether it is variations, whether it is like if you are driving, you have spent so much effort to get them on that page. If they leave, you should consider like that's the crime. Like what they should be able. Someone came to that page, they walked in. It's like that great line in Glengarry Glen Ross. Customer don't walk in unless he wants to buy. Like that is a great line. Now, have you done everything to help them buy? Or is there something on that page where that person can't convert? Look at your Q&A on the page. Are people saying like, can anyone figure out why I can't figure out how many grams of fat this thing has? Oh, wow, my back picture is on a rounded object. I should put a flat label. Whatever the heck it is, go through, look at your Q&A. If I'm going to promote that product on a day like Prime Day, what is everything I can be doing?
See, if you're circling a day as a goal to have your stuff ready, right? Like that's when you should be. If you're coming out of here with, oh, I need to make these changes, circle that as your goal of when you want to have your stuff ready, so that you're taking advantage of it. Any other Prime Day questions or suggestions? Then we'll wrap it up. If anybody else has any other random questions, we'll take like 1 or 2 more after this.
Yeah, so I'm actually curious to know if this goes into like gray hat or black hat, but something that I'm pushing for to try is running Facebook ads promoting the discount, driving that to a Facebook chat bot like ManyChat. That way, you can track who made that purchase, and then after Prime ends, follow up with them, kind of ask for them to leave a review without, using the right language, of course, so you're not saying if you're happy, leave a review, but asking them to leave a review. And then, now you also have them in your lead list to follow up with future product launches or deals or anything like that. Does that get into anything?
So the way you just described it
Yeah.
does not violate any terms of service from Amazon. So the way he described it was, he's going to use Amazon advertising. He's going to promote a coupon or a promotion. He's going to take them to a landing page of ManyChat, collect their email information, pass them the coupon code, send them to Amazon, and then follow up on ManyChat asking them for a review. That does not violate terms of service. Now, there are 5 different ways to start changing that, which would violate terms of service. So if you go to Amazon and you take all of your customer information and you use your customer information to make a like audience, you've now crossed over into the gray part of that. So that's the general process that you explained is not a gray hat tactic, but there are ways that you can, again, that's driving the speed limit, and then there are ways to start speeding from there.
Okay, thank you.
Final questions? Everyone is leaving with every question they came answered besides, will Uber pick me up and take me to the airport?
Tons of Ubers. I just looked.
All right, let's do 1, 2, and then we'll go.
Is this video, is this going to be available for us to access?
Yeah, so I believe that these videos will be available. So the cool thing is I don't know if you went downstairs by the lunchroom, but there's like a whole production studio. So they'll have these videos available to us within a couple of days, and then we will process them and share them with everybody who was here. Yeah. No, because we don't have to process them, like edit them. They actually have been editing them as we talk. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Slides, yeah. So we'll put slides into a folder and share them, right? Yeah. Why am I getting that look? Yes.
Too funny.
Yes, you'll get on Friday or Monday, depending on everything being put together. You'll be getting it. So keep it a lookout in your email. Great. Last question, Hugh.
Do you have any word on, is Amazon throttling reviews based upon some arbitrary number, not based upon your volume?
Throttling them as in like
limiting them to a certain number per day?
I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know why they would. I think that Amazon looks for natural behavior. And so if you're getting 100 orders a day and you're getting 100 reviews a day, that's not natural. If you're getting 100 orders a day and you're getting 1 review a day, that's natural. So I think that, that could be something within there. I mean, there's a lot of wacky things that go on with reviews and things on Amazon, and there's a lot of theories and conspiracy theories and such about what Amazon's doing and they're not doing. Let's just remember what Amazon wants. Amazon wants to protect the customer experience. Amazon wants to protect the integrity of reviews. So they will constantly continue to battle that fight.
I have heard a couple people mention that, whether it was automated or someone managing it, I don't know. But just like Jeff was saying, the people who mentioned having that happen were doing things that were abnormal.
So you got to question who's saying it, right? Yeah. And then you also have to question, did an article recently come out?
Right.
Because you want to see Amazon take action. Some people asked me this earlier today. They were like, I'm trying to do this and this and this, and I can't get Amazon. You want to get Amazon's attention? Get press. You get press, and you'll get a phone call from Amazon. Oh my God, we didn't know that was happening. How can we help you? Right? That's like an automatic Bezos escalation. Great. Well, you know what? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all for thank you all for the last 2 days and sharing with us and allowing us to share with you. And we as a company have learned a ton from being here with you, and we thank you for taking time out of your busy lives and your businesses to come and share and learn with us. So thank you. Everyone have a safe trip home.